To many, Wyoming is nothing more than a dusty flyover state, a place in the middle of the map that adds time between where you're going and where you've been. To the watchful eye, however, Wyoming holds secrets that have captured the passions of adventurers, outdoorsmen, climbers, fishermen, and hunters. With open landscapes and wildlife abound, it's possible that no one animal has drawn more to Wyoming than the North American elk. With 3 general elk tags, and myself acting as the lone film crew, we set out onto public land to find just one of the 75,000 elk that live within the Wyoming borders. A year of anticipation for a hunt like this, paired with 24 hours drive to your destination, makes for a car full of eager beavers on arrival. Fortunately, a 3-mile hike seemingly straight uphill in Wyoming elevations quickly corrects that problem and makes you question your workout routine for the last 4 months. Even with the details provided by Onyx Mapping, it's amazing how different a landscape can look when you get your boots on the ground. Our first point yielded little more than a herd of cows, a couple of other bow hunters, and one fantastic sunrise. Back down we go. A theme of any trip like this that you somehow never get used to. In search of our first fresh location, we turn to the wisdom of locals.
There's Devil's Creek, Fish Creek, a bunch of creeks up there, and he said there's a lot of elk up there. But he's like, there's bears, so he goes, if you shoot something, you have to get it out within 24. There will be a bear on in 24 hours. They got it made. They got a horse corral over there. There's a trailer. He's got a base camp with a wood stove in there. He's got a pack of cigarettes. His horses.
He had Marlboros?
He does. Marlboro. He said there is a ass load of bears. Like, you're shooing them off the trail when you're going in, and he's like, he said, you got a gun? I said, no, I got bear spray. He's like, okay, because he goes, I've dealt with people where they don't have a clue. They come in here and they're just like, he's like, it's not a joke.
With that sage advice and a renewed fear of bears in the back of our minds, we headed in for what would be the first bit of excitement on this trip. An excited night turned into morning and had camp packed up early. Not a half a mile into what would be an 8-mile day, this bull and cows made an appearance, most likely to see what these gringos were doing on his hillside. Completely pinned down, but with the wind in our favor, there wasn't much for us to do while inside of the herd except bask in the thrill of seeing our first elk on only the second day of the trip. The 5x5 sauntered back into the safety of the woods and gave us a small opportunity to take chase. With the wind still holding in our favor, Chuck and Paul made their approach while Dad and I stood by. It's amazing how quiet a group of animals weighing in at over 600 pounds can be when they want to be. One minute, they're crashing through the woods like wild horses. The next, they vaporized into the trees like ghosts. After 15 minutes of bugling without response, it was clear this herd was gone.
That's, on my end, that's all I've ever wanted to do is be here when they shot. Yeah. If everybody shoot one someday, so be it. Never see him again. Did you bugle?
send an arrow up in a Braveheart style.
I was giving you the old caribou trick.
Another night, another morning, another sunrise. We made good use of our boots the following day, and while it offered up some unexpected surprises, the promising start to this spot faded like the sounds of our bugling calls. The desire for fresh country and new opportunity grew as the memory of that first herd faded. It was time to move on. Once again, on the advice of some locals,
Have you seen any elk?
we packed up our things and headed a few ridge lines over. After a day of scouting, we were thrilled to discover that besides an abundance of mule deer and one small black bear, we had the area to ourselves. With little sign and no return bugles from our hikes, however, this location was not going to hold our attention for long. We made a plan to get a quick shower in while we were camped on the water. Hit a fishing hole in the morning, and then pack back out to the trailhead. We never expected what came next. There's nothing like waking up to the sounds of bugles echoing across the valley. While we explored our own ridgeline, we didn't anticipate a herd being on the bone-dry, deadfall-ridden ridgeline across from us. We learned better.
It's right in there. Let's play this. We gotta get across and call back.
This bull was coming in quick. We made the decision to set up and try to call him across the river. While we succeeded in getting the bull to come within 60 yards of Paul, he wouldn't cross the river. Let the chase begin. The bulls crested the ridgeline and out of sight. Without knowing where they came from or where they were going, we opted not to push them and spent the day in a few select ambush locations in case they returned. Despite not making another appearance, the next few days had exciting things in store. Nothing wakes you up from a 4:15 alarm like screaming bulls. After a quick hike back across our makeshift bridge and 2,000 feet of vert over deadfalls, we relocated the herd near where we spotted them the day before. They had already passed our location en route to where they were going, so this hunt would have to be a chase. Once they crested out of view, we snuck over the hilltop and set up. Chucky and I set up behind the pines and threw out a few calls while Dad and Paul waited ahead of us about 50 yards. They were rewarded with a small cow coming to investigate, but the 40 yards between them proved to be too far. Tomorrow would have to be the day. Alarm, bridge, hike, recrest the ridgeline. Bulls were screaming. The plan was to sneak into the pines and coax one of these bulls out of what we dubbed this area as the bedroom. Dad and Paul worked their way further into cover and waited. While we succeeded in pissing these bulls off, it was clear they were not leaving the cows to fight. New plan. Find Paul and Dad and give chase. The two of them had gotten separated in pursuit of the herd. Paul took a more tactical wait-and-see approach, while Dad chose to be aggressive and get in close. We had no idea, but as we slowly pushed forward towards the herd, Dad was only a few hundred yards away from us and closing the distance on a cow. The herd took off along with the rest of our morning hunt. The wind was still in our favor. What happened?
That's in the kill zone. She's feeding. So I'm trying to get a shot at her. Must have been more in here that I don't see. Because you're looking at her. But she was up in here. I don't know what to do. I figured there was an elk right there. I wanted to get a shot at her. So then I would have just rolled out. But finally kept going. Finally saw an elk. I think if you just hang out in here. Is this where we were yesterday? Eventually, we were down a little further. This is the same area. Yeah, I think we saw some feeding on that edge, but he was down in here. When cows, they were all in here. Or to full school, because I thought they were such a big one smaller egg where chased the cows up there. The big one kept bugling, but he was way up there after the whole herd split. But they're all, so we didn't scare them all.
Encounters like this highlight just how difficult it is to shoot an elk with a recurve bow. Even when everything goes right, you've found the elk undetected, the wind is in your favor, you've crept within shooting range. You make the smallest mistake, and the game's over. Dad's final movements to get a better shooting angle were spotted by a neighboring elk, and once a cow bolts, they all bolt. Thrilled by the close encounter, but disappointed we couldn't close the deal, we once again started the climb down the mountain back to our camp. The following 3 days were spent tracking that same herd without success. We tried circling them early in the morning, and got winded. We tried ambushing them on the way back into their bedroom, but they didn't make an appearance until long after dark. In a last-ditch effort, we hiked hard after them for a full morning, and while that did elicit our next closest encounter,
I think it's a guy.
it wasn't. We never could quite close the distance. It was day 11 of our trip, the longest one of these elk hunts we had gone on to date, and there was no meat in the freezer. We spent the remaining days checking out our last GPS coordinate, which brought back all those words of caution from our old friends at spot number 1, a sentiment that was reconfirmed by 3 other hunters making their way in and out of that location. This area had a shitload of bears. With empty coolers and a lingering feeling that we weren't as tough as we thought, we treated ourselves to one last night at a campground equipped with a fire pit, pancakes in town the next morning, and then hit the open road. Heading into the Elkwoods is always far from a guarantee. The success rate for hunts like these are less than 10%, a rate that falls dramatically when trying to do it with recurve bows. Despite the numbers to comfort yourself, you can't help but feel a little cheated somehow. Countless miles spent on the move with nothing but memories to show for it. It's disappointments like these that bring me back to an often quoted piece of wisdom from one of the OG American West hunters, Theodore Roosevelt. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. And if that doesn't get you going, here's a piece of wisdom from Huckleberry Finn.
Never do know where the wind will blow us, Ted. Never do know.
Until next time, Wyoming.